You've heard it, right? Of course you have. It's probably the most famous passage read at weddings, this beautiful poem about love. But what if I told you we've been looking at it through the wrong lens? What if this chapter isn't just about romance, but is actually a blueprint for how the government of heaven works? Yeah, let's get into it.
It all starts with this iconic line. The Apostle Paul seems to be making a simple point. You can be the most eloquent speaker in the world, but without love, it's all just empty noise. It's a great metaphor, we all get it. But hang on, that little phrase, tongues of angels, that's our first clue. It's a breadcrumb leading us to something way, way bigger.
And that leads us to the central question we're tackling today. Let's just forget the wedding reception for a minute. What if this whole passage is actually Paul's emergency intervention? A direct challenge to a church that was using incredible spiritual power in a way that looked a lot more like a heavenly rebellion than it did divine faithfulness.
So first things first, we've got to get beyond the wedding vows. To really hear what Paul is shouting from the rooftops here, we need to drop ourselves right into the original context. And believe me, it was electric.
And that means we need to take a trip back in time to ancient Corinth and its, well, spiritual spectacle. This place was a bustling, chaotic port city, and right at the heart of its church was a serious spiritual crisis. You see, in Corinth, spirituality was basically a performance. It was all about who could put on the best show, speaking in tongues, giving these amazing prophecies. These weren't seen as humble gifts for serving others. Oh no, they were status symbols, badges of honor you could use to climb the social ladder. And what does that lead to? Arrogance, competition, and a community totally fractured by division. And this is where you can really see the clash, right? It's like two totally different value systems are colliding. On one side, you've got Corinth, chasing public power, flashy spectacle, and secret esoteric knowledge. But Paul is about to introduce them to heaven's ethos, an entire reality built on self-giving faithfulness, patience, and this deep, covenantal loyalty. He's setting the stage for a major showdown of worldviews. Okay, so to really understand this heaven's ethos, we need a key, a kind of secret decoder ring for this whole passage. It's a concept that was second nature to Paul and his audience, but one we've mostly forgotten today: the divine council worldview. So what on earth is it? Well, put simply, the divine council worldview is the ancient idea that God doesn't rule alone up there. He presides over a heavenly assembly, a council of divine beings, often called Elohim or sons of God, who participate with him in running the cosmos.
If that sounds a bit complex, don't worry. Just think of it like this. It's God's heavenly team, his divine cabinet. This is the reality, the backdrop, for absolutely everything Paul's about to say about love.
Okay, so once you have that idea, God's heavenly team in your head, get ready, because 1 Corinthians 13 just lights up with new meaning. This is where we see that love isn't just a nice sentiment. It is, quite literally, heaven's operating system. And boom, suddenly that phrase, tongues of angels, just snaps into focus. It's not just some flowery metaphor. Paul is very likely talking about the actual language spoken in the divine assembly. He's telling the Corinthians, look, you can speak the language of God's heavenly government, but if you don't share its core character, you're just making meaningless, disruptive noise. This means we have to totally rethink what we mean by love here. The Greek word is agape, sure, but Paul is pouring all the meaning of the Hebrew concept of chesed into it. This isn't a warm, fuzzy feeling. It is a rugged, loyal, unbreakable covenant faithfulness. It's the moral fabric, the very law of heaven that holds the divine council together and keeps the cosmos from descending into chaos. So here's the bottom line, and this is crucial. Using spiritual power without this covenant loyalty isn't just a mistake, it's an act of cosmic rebellion. It's doing the exact same thing the fallen divine beings did when they used their authority for their own glory. But with this love, that same power becomes an act of design participation. You're aligning yourself with the work of heaven. And this is where it all comes together so beautifully. When Paul starts listing what love is, it's patient, it's kind, it doesn't envy, he's not giving us a moral checklist to feel bad about. No way. He is painting a portrait of God's own character. This is how God behaves. This is the code of conduct for his heavenly team. And so it has to be the code of conduct for his people, his team on earth. And all of this leads Paul to his grand finale, his big driving point. It all comes down to this one question. What is it that truly lasts forever? He's about to draw a very sharp line between the temporary and the eternal. In all those things the Corinthians were so proud of, prophecy, tongues, that special knowledge, Paul drops a bombshell. He says they are all temporary. They're like scaffolding on a building, absolutely necessary for construction in our current reality, but they are not the building itself. One day, they will cease. But love? Oh, that's different. Love never, ever ends. It isn't a tool for building something else. It is the building. It's the very substance, the atmosphere of eternal reality. When faith finally becomes sight and hope is totally fulfilled, love is the only thing that's left. It's the path, and it's also the destination. Paul uses this brilliant analogy. He talks about seeing in a mirror dimly. Now, ancient mirrors weren't like ours. They were polished metal. The reflection was blurry, distorted. That's our reality right now, he says. Partial knowledge, temporary gifts. But he promises a future reality where we will see face to face, a time of direct, unfiltered communion, where all that temporary stuff is replaced by the permanence of love. And here is the ultimate payoff. Seeing face to face in this ancient worldview isn't just about getting a good look at God. That phrase echoes descriptions of prophets who were allowed to stand in God's counsel. Paul is saying that humanity's ultimate destiny is to be welcomed into that divine assembly, to take our seats at the table and participate directly in the life and love of heaven. And that brings us to this incredible, mind-bending final thought from the early church father Gregory of Nyssa. Our final destiny, seeing God, isn't a static finish line where we finally know everything. He says the true vision of God is to be so captivated by his infinite love that we never, ever stop desiring more of him. It's an eternal, dynamic journey deeper and deeper into the very life of God himself.